I know what you're thinking, punk. You're thinking, did he fire 6 shots or only 5? And now, to tell you the truth, I forgot myself in all this excitement. But being this is a 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and will blow your head clean off, you've got to ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Welcome to Film Strip, featuring Ron.
It'll be my word against yours.
And Jay.
That's to know.
These podcasts will be spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
And I'm Ron.
This is our review of The Enforcer, starring Clint Eastwood, Harry Gardino, Bradford Dillman, Tyne Bailey, Devane Booker, directed by James Fargo. Released in 1976 on a budget of $9 million, made over $46 million at the box office. So more 70s sleaze this time around, Ron, but a lot shorter, 96 minutes, a lot tighter runtime, and a little more topical. Terrorism and females in the work.
Yes, two things that go hand in hand with one another.
It's like ripped from the headlines twice. So...
Exactly. At least I don't remember anyone saying the phrase "women's lib."
Yeah.
So I think we dodged a bullet there.
There's also a lack of racially incendiary pejoratives in this film. There's not nearly as many of them as there were the last time.
I can only imagine the PC police got to. Or it's the lack of John Milius.
I think that may also be part of it. I don't believe he had anything to do with the writing of this. This was actually written by a couple of San Francisco film students, and then they actually had written the film, and then they stuck Dirty Harry into it after they saw Dirty Harry and Magnum Force, and then decided, hey, let's stick Dirty Harry in this and we'll get it made. So before Hollywood had that idea, writers did it to themselves. I want that read into the record for everyone. So, but no, that's the idea. They took the Patty Hearst kidnapping.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. Yes, and they took the Patty Hearst kidnapping and put it in there, and then. Married it with Dirty Harry, and what would Harry Callahan be dealing with in 1975, 76? It'd be a different police force than, 70 and 71 when we met him first, and at that point he had been on the force for a while, right? So as he gets older, times change.
But that's the weird thing about it. Like, his first partner is Hispanic. His partner after that is a black guy. Is Dirty Harry just doomed to get the next... I mean, is his partner after this going to be a gay guy?
I mean, you wonder. I mean, look, they will go with it. Next time there is no partner, and then the last time it's an Asian guy. So they do make the rounds. They don't ever go with sexual preference, but they hit gender and race pretty well every way they can here. So between them, I'm with you. I don't know that was necessary. This film, I think, in some ways. Like, if you wanted to do one of those recut trailers, that like they'll take something and turn The Shining into like a Christmas movie or something, just by changing the music and, redoing the scenes, you could turn this into like a buddy comedy between he and Tyne Daly, because it almost feels like that. Like, if it wasn't a Dirty Harry movie, they would laugh at each other. And
they definitely have those moments, like, yeah. Especially after she, like, kind of proves her worth to Harry as more than just the diversity hire.
Yeah, they have there's actually some good fun. I will argue, I loved the chemistry he and Felton Perry had last time. I think he and Tyne Daly actually have pretty good chemistry together. Not romantic at all. That was actually written into the film originally. Clint was like, nah, that ain't happening. And Tyne Daly apparently agreed, because I don't think Clint was her type, but nobody wanted to see that. So, they took that out of the film, thankfully. But I think they left in the banter, and that's fun, is when you can have, for lack of a better way of saying it, sexual tension. In other words, tension between people of different sexes, but not have sexual attraction between them. It can be fun. There can be some fun buddy stuff in there when you do that right.
It's just the classic mismatched partners thing that Harry has basically been working with the whole time, except for in the second film, where he's got a partner who's, kind of like-minded, also a serious cop lifer type.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, Early even says, I'm not going to go teach college. That's all I know how to do. And he dies being a cop. He gets blown up. Also continuing a tradition here of Harry's partners don't last long. Rainey Santoni, lived but was definitely scarred for life and went back to teaching. And Early's dead and blown up. And as we'll find out, Kate doesn't make it much further either. So it's kind of sad to be Harry's partner. They'll make a joke out of that later in the series, but. They even drop a line about it in this one that his partners don't last.
Yeah, they're already making the joke in this one.
I should note he loses 2 in this one. So we'll get to that. I think before we go any further, though, Rod, as best you can, sum up what the Enforcer's all about. Actually, no, that's my turn, so you set me up for that, and I'll just have to cut all that out. Wonderful. So...
Okay, Jay, before we get too much further into our discussion of this movie, why don't you lay out what the plot actually is for this particular film?
Okay, I'm going to keep it kind of high level here, so we'll see what we get. So, Harry Callahan is reassigned from homicide after his latest use of excessive force where he runs a car into a held-up liquor store to thwart a robbery and then shoots a lot of people. They actually sent him to the personnel department where he's going to do interviews for new cops. How wonderful. Meanwhile, a terrorist group calling themselves the People's Revolutionary Strike Force, led by a militant named Maxwell, organizes a series of crimes in San Francisco hoping to strike a big payday. They kidnap the mayor and steal rockets and rifles for their next attack, and Harry and his new female partner, Inspector Kate Moore, must work together to stop them. Callahan and Moore locate the gang on Alcatraz Island where they battle the kidnappers, and Moore frees the mayor, but Maxwell kills her as she saves Callahan's life. He avenges Moore by blowing Maxwell up with a law rocket, and Harry stands by his fallen partner's body rather than receive acclaim from the mayor as the cavalry arrives and credits roll. And that's the quick summary of The Enforcer.
That's one of the things we were talking about, I think we were talking about it off the air, is how much this movie rips from the headlines, so to speak. The People's Revolutionary Strike Force is basically the Symbionese Liberation Army without Patty Hearst.
Yes, exactly.
What's his name? Big Ed Mustafa's group is basically the Black Panthers, or the Black Militants from Black Dynamite, if you've seen Black Dynamite.
Yeah, they're that too. Also, Mustafa is the pimp that got killed in the last movie, and the guy that got, did he shoot 5 or 6 in the first movie at the bank robbery. So he's now a Black Militant. That's his third role. So in the Harry Callahan series here.
And it's funny that they immediately head to Alcatraz for our our climax. Yeah, because not too long before this movie was made, a bunch of Native Americans took over Alcatraz to protest federal policies towards the U.S. government and the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
Yes, exactly. So I mean, they're pulling everything together here. Not to mention, Eastwood himself would wind up back here 3 years later with Escape from Alcatraz as a film, study. So there's lots of stuff here. I feel like of everything, and the story in this is that there were 2 San Francisco film writers that were, starting out, had written a screenplay, and then after they saw Dirty Harry and Magnum Force, they refashioned it to put Callahan in it. And, it had the whole Patty Hearst bit and the militants and holding ransom in San Francisco. This film feels like an amalgamation of like 20 different ideas. And let's cut it down to the sleekest 90 minutes, the most economical thing we possibly can.
Now, the San Francisco film students or whatever, are those the ones who got the story credit? Or are those the ones who got the screenplay credit?
They are the story credit people. The screenplay credit are people, I think, professional screenwriters brought in to, punch it up.
Because one of them never did anything again.
Yeah.
And the other one actually wrote a bunch of Charles Bronson movies after this.
That's
worked on
awesome.
Death Wish 4, Murphy's Law, The Big Score.
Wow. Is that Dean Resner? Is he the one that did all that?
Gail Morgan.
Okay, Gail Morgan's one of the story writers then. So
yeah, she's one of those film students. And apparently she took this idea of Dirty Harry, and that's the only thing she's written since then.
Well, the guys that Eastwood brought in, Silphant and Reznor, had been people that he worked with before. Silphant had worked on Dirty Harry and had done some other stuff, and then Reznor had done Coogan's Bluff and went on to work with Eastwood on worked on Play Misty for Me. If you've ever seen that, it's a really interesting thriller, and had done High Plains Drifter and some other stuff. So I mean, these were Eastwood's cronies. And look, the director is his assistant director. Eastwood was going to direct this, and he ended up not being able to because he was doing post-production on The Outlaw Josey Wales. So he got his first assistant director to come do this, which is a nice way of saying, I'm going to tell you what to do and you'll get credit for it. And that's pretty well how it went, from what I understand.
I guess as long as the check doesn't bounce, it doesn't really matter.
I don't think James Fargo cared. I think he's one of those guys that's like, he's like the guys that work with Brett Ratner. You know, it's like, yep, sure. Yep, I'm there, baby. So whatever you say, Brett, whatever you say, Frank. So I think it's one of those. So.
When Clint Eastwood calls, you say, yes, sir.
Exactly, yeah. This is just Steve and Edie. So, if you will. So, but beyond that, this does feel like, we were talking about this off air too, that if you wanted to do one of those like joke rematch trailer things, you can make like a buddy, cop comedy out of this with him and Tyne Daly, because they do have good chemistry together, and there's a lot of like funny, witty banter between them.
Yeah, which is really kind of a strange thing to think about.
Yeah. Well, I think
those two.
I think like everybody knows Tyne Daly as Cagney and Lacey, right? Like that's her most famous role at this point, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's known. She's done Emmy work and has got a Tony Award and all kinds of other things. But she's Detective Lacey. I mean, that's what I knew her as in the '80s, and I think that's why she got this gig. Much like David Soul got Starsky and Hutch off of being in Magnum Force, I think she got Cagney and Lacey off of doing The Enforcer.
Well, she was also apparently on a TV series. No, I'm reading it wrong. Never mind.
Okay. Just pick up with, she got Cagney and Lacey off The Enforcer or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I zoned out. Sorry.
Oh, we're fine. We're talking about the chemistry they had together.
Yeah, it's really weird to see those two like as on the screen at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really weird look, especially at this particular age.
Well, yeah. I mean, what Callahan is, or Eastwood's pushing near 50. Tyne Daly in 1976 would have been 30, and is about a foot and a half shorter.
Yeah, it's like they got to put her on an apple box so they can shoot them together at the same time.
Oh, she's in heels the whole film almost. I mean, it's just so they can keep them somewhat looking at each other, And I'm not trying to make fun of the woman. I mean, she's short. Eastwood's a tall dude anyway, but she's short. I mean, she's very short and stocky and, kind of plucky. And the thing is, and I read this in the behind the scenes, is that originally there was going to be like this romantic thing with them, and both Tyne Daly and Eastwood said, eh. And thankfully so, right? Because we didn't need that at all.
Now, do you think Clint learned his lesson from the Magnum Force? Dirty Harry love interest. I
don't know if that girl was kind of hot. I mean, there wasn't anything wrong with that. I just think he was like, maybe we shouldn't try to do that again. And I also think too, Clint at this point is involved in the behind the scenes, the direction. I think he's probably got some of the. I know Robert Daly's a producer he works with a lot, so he's clearly got some stake in this thing probably, and he's probably getting paid off a percentage on it as it performs. I'm sure Clint is like, no, let's make this as economical as possible. I don't need another one of those Camino 3-hour things.
Yeah.
and I'm not going to do another gun porn from Milius. So if we're not doing that, then what are we doing here? Well, let's do topical stuff. We'll do Petty Hearst. We'll do San Francisco political corruption, and we'll do women in the workforce. Yeah, shoot it. I think that's how that went. I got to go do Outlaw Josey Wales, which, if you've ever seen, is a brilliant Western. It's a great film.
Yeah,
and I would argue Eastwood's attention is much more into what that film was going to be than he is in this. He phones this performance in completely. This is a terrible Clint Eastwood performance.
Well, there's nobody in the cast to we discussed it in Magnum Force. He needs people to push him.
Yeah.
I think we discussed that.
Yeah, we did.
He needs somebody, and the only time he really looks like he's alive is when he's in the scenes with Tyne Daly. And it's once they've gotten past their rough introduction and they start to have that chemistry, that banter, that's when he really seems to wake up.
Yeah, it is like he's half asleep for most of the film. Even when John Mitchum, who's played the same, DiGiorgio detective in the last 2 films, he's currently Harry's partner. He gets killed by the Liberation Army as they're ripping off a army surplus or something where they're stealing law rockets and all this stuff. And he gets killed, and it's like, sorry, Frank. I mean, there's no tears over that at all. I mean, it's very...
he's used to all his partners dying, but at the same time, this is a guy he's clearly known for years.
Exactly. He should be affected by this. When Charlie McCoy got killed in the last movie, it stunned him, it shocked him. You could see it. It bothered him when Early got blown up. He should care, and he's just whatever. So.
And for that matter, Tyne Daly doesn't really seem that invested in it either.
No, she really doesn't. Outside of her scenes with him, and she's really only in scenes with Eastwood. I think she's pretty good in her little action scene at the end, but she has a funny moment when he's talking with the Big Mustafa, the Black Liberation leader or whatever. She's surrounded by all these dudes. She's trying to read them their rights and be very procedural cop lady, but it's funny, but. It's not, but there's nothing there. I mean, again, and I will lay all of this on something I told you off air. You can judge Dirty Harry movies sometimes by how fun or how interesting the tagline is. In the first movie, it's all about the myth of the 44 Magnum, and did he fire 5 or 6? And so there's that Western bit to it. Then in the second one is a man's got to know his limitations. Well, I don't even know what this one is. There's no line other than. We need more women cops so we can get shot, or whatever that awful thing he says in the interview to her.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the purpose of it is.
I think the tagline for this one would be if you can't stand the heat, stay in the kitchen.
Yeah. That is awesome. Somebody should have thought of that. But the other thing, too, is that the protagonist in these films, Scorpio had a personality. It's weird, and that's mostly Andrew Robinson, but he had a personality. The 4 cops who were the killers and Briggs had personality to spare in that last movie.
Yeah, because it was 4 awesome actors plus that redheaded guy.
Right. Devereen Bookwalter as the terrorist leader Bobby Maxwell. Does he even get 5 lines of dialogue? He doesn't say anything. He looks like a second-rate Terrence Stamp with blonde hair.
Yeah. He is a cipher, and if you're gonna have what's essentially a cult leader, if you're gonna have a cult, he needs to be a real charismatic type of guy. I mean, I can only assume that the dude who was the real life leader of the SLA is the dude who inspired Stephen King to create Randall Flagg, and this guy, this blonde lump, is the best you can do.
No, that's the thing is this is also a couple years before, but they had already made news. The People's Temple with Jim Jones was out. I kind of got a little bit of that off of these people too, because that would have been topical being in Frisco. But this guy's not enigmatic at all. There's nothing interesting about him when he's on the screen except the way he looks. I mean, the whole first setup, you talk about sleaze, man. These 2 gas company drivers see this woman with, if she had those jeans hiked up any further, man, we would have known her religion. And she, gets them to take me out to Marion County, says they can get shot by a shotgun. Now, the gun shot effects have improved vastly in 3 years. I'll say that. But other than that, I was watching this going that was interesting. What was the purpose of that again? They steal the truck. That's the whole point. But I didn't put that together in any grand way. Nobody says anything about it.
I just don't understand why they even had to take him out to Marin County.
I know. Why couldn't they just shot him on the side of the road?
Unless they were, because it's not like they were in the middle of the city. I mean, they were already kind of out in the middle of nowhere anyway.
I think that was where their compound was, though we never really get taken into any of that. That's what that's all about. It's that's what I took from it. But it wasn't like we ever did a raid on the family or anything. There's none of that in this, so I don't know. So.
And I mean, really, this movie is from, what is it, 1976?
Yeah, this is 76. So
okay, in that same year, if you want to talk charismatic, creepy performance, Steve Railsbeck was doing Charles Manson in Helter Skelter.
Yes. Which
you don't think you could go get Steve Railsbeck to just basically play this guy as Manson meets dude from the SLA whose name I can't remember.
Well, better yet, can I just throw this out there? Why wouldn't you have Dirty Harry and his new female partner investigate something like the Manson family murders? That would have been incredibly topical. Would have been, a big draw for the audience, I would think, and it would have been interesting. I mean, what would Dirty Harry do with a guy like Charles Manson? Well, obviously you'd want him to shoot him, but hey, what we're showing here is a softer Dirty Harry. He's not as violent as he has been, and I think what they're trying to convey is that as he gets older, he's using his brain more than he is using the gun necessarily, even though he shoots a guy with a rocket at the end of it. We'll get to that. But it's almost like you have to drive him into violence. Now, as for before, he was the man with no name, with a name with a gun. I mean, that's just what he was in the first movie. Second movie, a little more thoughtful. This one, he's much more into the thought processes. And so if you're going to do that, why not have him do detective work on something like the Manson family?
Yeah, or just, again, I compare it to Zodiac.
Yeah, that was another one. I think they had already done Zodiac, and they didn't want to get into the rehash of it, but that would have been more interesting. Like, what if Scorpio had a partner? And, I guess that's too tropey even for the 70s, right? But something. I mean, this one feels so out there. And I'll just jump ahead for a second. It feels so different than all the other Dirty Harry films. It is a very, odd entry, and it looks bad. I mean, this movie's cost more than the other ones did, but I think that's just the rising cost of production and the rising cost of the actors and things like that, because this movie looks like a TV movie of the week. I mean, it looks cheap.
It doesn't even look as good as a lot of TV movies.
Yeah,
that's, and it definitely feels like sleazier.
Mm-hmm.
Even more sleazy than Magnum Force, and that had a scene where a bunch of topless women got shot at a pool. And they managed to top that sleaze level.
Yes, they did. I mean, and it all is in that early scene with the Jorts girl. It's really where they top that. But there's also there's no character to any of this. It's all very one-dimensional, and just I don't care. I have no reason to invest in any of these people, and we get these vignettes of scenes where they're ripping off the big they're gonna they rip off the gas company truck, and then you get Eastwood and DiGiorgio with the whole $15,000 of damage at the liquor store thing, and then they do the whole interviewing bit, which is a joke, and then they have Callahan and his new partner go out to learn how to use law rockets for no reason. Other than we gotta have Chekhov's law rocket, now. So, I mean, that's what that felt like. I was like,
I can only imagine that in Magnum Force there was a scene where John Milius wanted them to have a law rocket.
I don't even know if law rockets existed in 73, but because I think they were relatively new weapons to us. But I take that back. No, those have been around since the 60s. So yeah, he probably did. You're right. Maybe that's the one holdover from the Milius world was the.
Well, it's just another inside joke, kind of like the whole Dirty Harry picks up an Asian girl.
Yeah, so now we gotta. You can't just shoot somebody with the 44 this time. He's got to shoot him with a damn missile. So that's how the movie's gonna end. But yeah, it's very. I don't know. It's very.
It definitely feels like the third movie.
Yeah.
In a series where it's like, well, we kind of got more ideas, but we don't have good ideas, but at the same time, like, we could clearly make money off this character. So let's just figure something out.
I think it is exactly that. It feels like a cash grab, and it starts with Eastwood for me. Again, I feel like he's phoning the performance in. He doesn't really want to be here. I think Daly is enjoying this because this is early for her in terms of doing film work, and it's a chance to be a part of a big action franchise, but she's also the token thing you throw in at this point, and she plays it like that. So there's that. You kill off a character that had been with you for a couple of films. Maybe people recognize him, maybe they didn't. This is before VHS and all that, but he was a guy people would know, John Mitchum, and so there's no weight given to that. And then these villains, again, the only thing you get out of them that's remotely character motivation is in their robbery. Excuse me. In their robbery, when DiGiorgio gets shot, he shoots one of the other girls, and Maxwell, goes and after he stabbed him, shoots her to finish her off because she's dead weight. And that's all he gets. And I'm like, well, that's lame. Like, we didn't need a reason to hate this guy more. he's already the bad guy.
I mean, they already killed a couple of innocent gas company dudes.
Yeah, horny gas company guys that just wanted a couple of cold beers with a blonde girl.
And I mean, at the end of the day, who doesn't? I think we've all...
Especially wearing those shorts, man. I'm like, wow. And for the 70s, I was like, she's taking risks. So,
clearly.
I'm just saying. So, but yeah, I mean, there's nothing there. I mean, the new partner thing is set up as a lark. It's a joke. Because all he does is antagonize this poor woman, and she keeps coming back for more because she is a desk jockey. She's never made an arrest of any kind, we find out. But as it turns out, she's actually pretty good because she has all this knowledge. She knows the law backward and forward. She knows procedure, and she knows how to listen to Callahan because, probably she knows at this point he's killed at least 80 people. And so, I'm going to get behind that guy,
Yeah, if you want someone to teach her what not to do, Dirty Harry's a great choice for that.
Yeah, that's the other thing is why would you ever pair someone that obviously you're hiring her for a lot of reasons, one of which is the publicity and the public relations and the quota part of it. But why on earth you would ever pair her with this guy makes no damn sense at all. Like, it's the worst PR, HR decision ever. It's terrible.
Yeah, and I don't really understand what, why would they bring back DiGiorgio and even Lieutenant Bressler came back for the first movie? I don't understand what the purpose was of bringing them back.
I know. I mean, is anybody going to remember them? This is before home video. So do you remember who those people are? I mean, I don't know that you would.
I mean, the only thing I remember about DiGiorgio is the too much linguine jokes they keep going for.
Right, yeah, too much linguine. Yeah, I mean, he's too fat to get over the hill, which they would play all the way through. Like, Will Smith was playing that joke in Men in Black, When you talking about you are half the man I am, or I am half the man you are, or whatever it was, the line. But, yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, it really surprises me as to what they're doing here, And there's also a tour de force around San Francisco again. Like, we're going to show what this is all about.
Yeah, it's another. It just makes me think of Bullet.
Mm-hmm.
How there's so many iconic shots of San Francisco in that movie, and they were like, well, people might remember this.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. But again, it's also thin. It's also thinly veiled, too. Like, I don't understand what the People's, Liberation Army is trying to do here, right? Like, they're apparently trying to get money, but for what? Like, they're like the underwear gnomes. There's no real plan. Which, makes them even dumber. Like, at least you knew what Scorpio was doing. He was an agent of chaos, to borrow some, Joker stuff. And he just wanted to kill, and he also wanted to get paid, but he just wanted to kill people because he's a psycho. The other cops just wanted to wipe the scum off the street. Well, their way, at Wild West. What do these people want?
I think that may be like a meta commentary on the SLA, how they were this whatever supposed freedom organization, but all they did basically was rob banks and do drugs.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. We needed to see those people like zoning out because it was clear they were playing that role anyway, and we don't get scenes of them stoning up, and or doing heroin or whatever it is. Like I needed that, I think, to fulfill their uselessness.
Yeah, I think we really did miss out on something there, or just doing something to expand, try to spread the message of the people or something, do some kind of proto-communist whatever, It just feels like they were like, well, we don't really understand what the SLA are or what they're doing, but we like the name. The name sounds cool, and I like the idea of a bunch of hippies like shooting up banks. Yeah. So let's just make our bad guys the People's Revolutionary Front of Judea or whatever.
the Church of Religious Consciousness. Would you like to make a donation to our terrorist efforts? Yes, no, I agree. They don't seem to have any grand plan, or if it is, it's not well spelled out. And that's the other thing too. Like the whole terrorism plot of this, like Harry did more to thwart terrorism in the last movie. We didn't talk about it much, but the plane holdup that was going on at the airport that he just happened to be at, and he goes on there and tries to fly the damn plane before he takes everybody out. That was interesting versus this paper thin nothing. And they set up the mayor and the chief here to just be just the worst kind of like, suck up politicians that just are useless people. Like there's no way on earth anyone would root for these people, right?
No, they're not. There's no one really to root for in the movie. Tyne Daly's annoying. Clint Eastwood's a dick. Every other cop seems more concerned with, CYA. The mayor seems more concerned with looking good in public. The terrorists are terrorists, but who don't have some sort of noble goal. I mean, like, Big Ed Mustafa's like the only, like, person who seems like he has a brain in his head and a mission.
Well, let's talk about them, too. They get blamed for setting bombs and ripping stuff off, but in actuality, I mean, they're doing crime for sure, but they're not in near that level of stuff. Not even close.
No, right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. They're definitely, their criminality is way overstated, and I think that was some sort of like, oh, well, the cops are just being racist kind of thing.
Which also was a topical thing of the moment. Let's throw that in there, too. There's too many things. Again, this feels like TV movie of the week or like 3 TV movies of the week just sort of mashed together. Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, it's so haphazard and it just clunks along. And that's the thing. Last movie was over 2 hours long, and at times it did feel kind of long, but at least it kept you engaged. It kept you moving. This movie is boring, and it's 96 minutes long. I mean, it is utterly atrocious to sit through this. It's a slog.
Yeah, even the trip to the, where's it that they go? The massage parlor or whatever?
Yeah.
Even there, where they should have at least thrown in some nudity, because it's the 70s, why not?
Yeah.
And it's not like that they've been afraid of that in the past. They don't even really go for any titillation there.
Yeah, there's almost none of that in this. I mean, this feels so hacked together.
All you get is the bad comedy of the old ladies in the phone sex booth.
Yeah, which is awful, and he comes in with the whole "I'm Larry Dickman," which apparently was some kind of inside joke again from Eastwood, and I don't know where, like it was his fake porn name. I don't know, but there's some story behind that. But it's ridiculous. There's nothing. Again, there's nothing to engage you and keep you involved in this. To me, like it. I don't know. I got really bored with it several times in through the course of watching it.
Yeah, I definitely. This is the one that I fell asleep on multiple times.
I can see why. I mean, because outside of the obvious setup stuff of the law rocket, or if you're interested in the witty banter between these two cops, there's nothing else to really latch onto. Because as it turns out, Callahan finds out what he needs to find out because he makes a deal with the black militant, and then they get blamed for everything because the mayor is trying to CYA and look good and all this, and Callahan's ticked off for it, and because of that, he ultimately gets suspended. I do love the fact that Harry finally speaks his mind, like, it doesn't hold back. And so I was like, I got a 7-pointed suppository for you here, Chief, and whatever. And I was like, wow, that's okay. Tell us how you really feel. So
I did laugh at that line.
Yeah, I was like, don't hold back, Bones.
But I think I was so starved for something to be amused by.
Yeah.
That. It only seems funny in retro and by comparison to the rest of the movie.
Exactly. Well, I mean, yeah, because the rest of the movie is just terrible. There's no other way to say it. It's not fun to watch, and it's hard to get through. And I guess that means we need to get to the end of it here, because it does go down at Alcatraz. And I did think this was a neat set. I mean, a good idea, because they ambushed the mayor after an old Giants game, which I'd forgotten the Giants played in that crappy of a stadium at one time or another. But wow, so that makes Candlestick look like a dream. So I was like, sheesh. So I'm glad that got destroyed, somewhere along the way, because that was before AstroTurf had any padding. It was just, you pretty much played on concrete. So,
and it was like the same AstroTurf at your local putt-putt course.
Exactly, and just as happily put together too. It's terrible. So, but we do get the great showdown at Alcatraz, and I like the way that Moore is able to go down. She goes with Callahan after he's basically been laid off, and we'll follow him on this. I like that she's willing to follow him into battle, as it were, because that's where he's going. And I think it's neat that she dies saving Callahan's life.
Yeah, that was probably one of my favorite aspects, is that little twist there where she's the one who saves him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she saves him. That hasn't happened yet. We haven't seen Callahan rescued by somebody else up to this point, and I thought that was great. It's a well done bit, and I think she got a good death scene too. Usually you're just dead, and she is able to kind of milk it a little bit, for lack of a better way of saying it.
And I actually liked the way that they came to understand one another, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
That was one of the few things I think that worked, where after he had given up his badge, and she was like, well, if I happen to find some information that may or may not benefit you, I may or may not,
yeah,
that kind of
cool way of working through everything. Yeah.
Yeah, or just that she was willing to be the guy on the inside, so to speak.
Yeah, because she wanted to see this resolved the right way too. She knew this was a PR sham from the brass, and that this wasn't what real cops did, and so she wanted it to be done the right way too. And I think he respected her for that. And I think that the ultimate sign of that is when he rescues the mayor after shooting the law rocket at the guy who's trapped in the tower and out of guns and cornered.
In a scene that makes absolutely no sense.
None at all. There's no reason for that guy. That guy picked the worst tactical position he could possibly find. So
yeah, I mean, there's a big difference between taking the high ground and then abandoning your hostage.
Exactly. Yeah, you just let him go so you can stand up there, run out of ammo, and look worried as a rocket comes at you and blows you away. Which, how that didn't kill the mayor, I still don't understand. But the mayor survives, and he's basically offering to pay Callahan's non-existent children's tuition, for life. And Callahan blows him off to go stand by the body of his dead partner. And as the negotiators roll in, I don't think that's by mistake. You hear them going, "We have what you want. Let everyone go." And it's already been taken care of, as if the smoldering explosion residue wasn't signed. Well, Callahan's been here.
Right. And as if they learned nothing from the first movie, where they keep giving Scorpio what he wants, and he keeps killing people anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, what's the point? Yeah. You cannot negotiate with certain people. You just have to unleash your best weapon on him. Well, he unleashes himself, as it turns out, I guess. So,
I think this is just the proof that we need to know that the San Francisco Police Department is thoroughly worthless and corrupt.
That's the point. That's what you get from watching this. It certainly feels that way, at least. So.
And that's about all I got from the movie.
Yeah, there's not much more, that's for sure. So, well, I think we're at the point of the podcast where it's time to get final thoughts, recommendations, and popcorn ratings for the movie. So what are yours for The Enforcer?
If I had to give recommendations, I would say not watch it.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough worthwhile to merit a viewing. Even if you are a Dirty Harry fan, it doesn't really feel all that much like a Dirty Harry movie. It just feels like there's this jerk who carries around a giant gun and is mean to poor little Tyne Daly. And yeah, they eventually come to be friends or whatever, and she dies saving him. And there's a few neat wrinkles, but I don't think there's enough there to make it worth checking out. So I'm gonna have to go with a small popcorn, and it's definitely the weakest of the Dirty Harry movies we've watched so far, and it's definitely the one that feels like they took Dirty Harry and shoehorned him into an entirely different movie.
I would rename this movie The Reinforcer, as in reinforcing what a bad idea can be when you run it too long. Like, this feels like the worst chapter you could give in a series. And this is the guy that reviewed the 8 Hellraiser movies saying this. You know, there's at some point where there's nothing left to do. And when the principals are involved, and in this case, that is Eastwood, when he is not fully engaged and interested in something, and particularly this, you can tell it. And this is the first one that's felt that way, but it is bad all the way around. I'm with you. I wouldn't recommend it. I'd say skip it if you're watching this series. If you watched this before our review came out, I'm very sorry that you bothered to run this down and see it. I hope it only cost you a check on your library card and not any real money, because I would never recommend anyone to sit through this. And if I could have justified some way skipping it, we would have, but it's part of the series. It's a bad movie. It's not even a bad Dirty Harry movie. It's just a bad movie altogether.
I think one of the things that makes it feel that it doesn't fit with the rest of them is that it doesn't have that great score.
Yeah, that's everything about this feels cheap. Even though it's the most expensive one so far, it feels hacked together and cheap. And it's a small popcorn. Burnt, awful, leave it in the bag, forget it. I mean, it's not the worst thing I've ever reviewed by any means. I know I'm railing on a lot, but it's a real disappointment, especially coming off of 2 movies that are really good.
Yeah, and I think that's and I think that's what makes this movie that much worse, is that it directly follows 2 really, really good 70s cop flicks.
Yeah, that's the thing, is if it wasn't following what had been such good entries, maybe it wouldn't sting as much, but you can see it being better. And I'll go ahead and say now, the next one up is a lot better. You know, it's way better. But it took them 7 years to come back to this, mostly because Eastwood didn't want to do this anymore. He wanted to do other things. He went and did other things and then decided, I'll come back and take a look at Dirty Harry now. And he directed it too. So I think he wanted to have the reins on one of them, and it's also in his Sandra Locke phase, so we'll talk about that too next time when we get around to Sudden Impact. But I am happy to say it does come back up. I haven't seen Deadpool in a long time, so I don't remember it, but I know the next chapter is not nearly as bad as this. So because I don't know how it could be unless it was Leprechaun 4 or something. So which probably in somebody's mind happened one time or another in Hollywood. Folks, thanks for joining us in this latest episode of Film Strip. You can find more episodes on our website, continuousplaypodcast.com. Also find links to our other podcast ventures there. Hook up with us on Facebook and Twitter. Let us know what you think of the show, and leave us a review on iTunes if you like the show. It helps other people find it. Until next time, for Ron, I'm Jay. Thanks for listening to Film Strip.
Thank you for listening to Film Strip. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of their respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504C2, Title 17.